This video is about building the Wave Manager, which initially will spawn and advance enemies along the path. And a special thanks to all my supporters. Thank you for helping me help others. So to start, in a previous video we changed the size of our map and when we added our tiles. So when you hit play, player start's not in a good position. I'm just going to update that. So player start now, I'm going to set this to 200, 500, 500. So when I hit play, there we go, looks a little better. Next, in our enemies folder, I'm going to right-click the enemy base. I'm going to create child blueprint class. I'm going to call this one BP_Purple Enemy. Open that up. And in our static mesh, I'm going to search for UFO Purple. There we go. We have a nice purplish UFO. Next, in our blueprints folder, I'm going to create another blueprint. This will just be an actor. We'll call this BP_Wave Manager. In our Wave Manager, we're going to add some variables. First of all, we want a path variable. This will obviously be of type BP path. And we're going to make this instance editable. We also want to store the path length. This will just be the float. And lastly, we want an array of enemies. So this will be of type BP enemy base and an array. So with that set, we can go back into our level. We can just drag in a wave manager, just pop it over there. With that selected now, because we set path to instance editable, you have it here and you can select it. So we have a few options here. We can use the selected actor that's in the level. We can select an actor in the viewport, and we could pick an actor from the scene. So if I click on this and make it slightly visible over here, we have our BP path. So I click that, it fills this. So now in our begin play, we can control drag out our path. We want to ensure that it's valid, so we'll convert that. And as long as that is valid, we can then call our utility function, which is getLength. We're going to save that to our path length. I'm going to create two new functions. So the first one is update wave. This function will take in the delta seconds. Just going to call it delta. And I'm going to create a second function, but it has the same parameter, so I'm just going to duplicate and call this one advance enemies. So in our update wave function, first of all, I'm just going to call sequence. The purpose of this function will be to spawn enemies and move them along the path. So the second part of that is just calling advance enemies. Pop this down here and drag in delta. For the first part, so this video stays simple and not too lengthy, I'm going to add a temporary time until enemy float. We have to turn off the array here. And for that, I'm going to drag that out, control drag that out. I'm going to subtract the delta value and then set that back into the time until enemy. So that when that value is less than 0, we can then set that value again. We'll just set it to 4 seconds. and we're going to spawn an enemy. So for that, I'm going to take the path variable. I want to get the location. And when I send 0 to the location, that will be the very first spot along the spline. And then call spawn actor from class, send along our purple enemy. Right click on the transform to split it and put in the location. We're then going to control drag out our enemies array, call add, and add that entry. I'm also just going to get the length from this array. And print it out. So every 4 seconds, currently we're just going to spawn an enemy, and then after that section is done, advanced enemies gets called. So the purpose of advanced enemies will be, we take our enemies array, we're going to call for each. For each of the enemies in this array, we're just calling the advanced function we made. We're sending along the delta value that was sent to this function. And this is the distance value that is tracked inside of each enemy when that value is less than the path length. We can then get the path again, call get length on it, call get location on it, and send along this same distance value. So that we can set the actor location. So the last part here is, as long as the distance is less than path length, all good, it's moving towards that. If that's no longer true, it's gotten to the end of the path. So we're going to then call destroy actor on this enemy. So with that done, we go back into our event graph and make sure that update wave is being called from event tech. When we hit play, every 4 seconds, one of these is spawned. It follows along the path, and then when it gets to the end, it destroys the actor. You can see the count we're setting, or we're printing out every time one of them is spawned, but you can see this number just keeps going up. So that's the count of how many have been spawned, but it's supposed to be the count of how many enemies currently exist. So when we stop this, oh no, we've got a totally unexpected error. The error here is it's attempting to access one of the enemies, and it's basically getting the deleted entry. So the reason that is because in our advanced enemies, this destroy actor. So we're effectively doing 2 things wrong here. First of all, we have our list of enemies, and then we're just destroying one of those entries in the list. So it's not cleaning up the list. The list stays the same size, but the entry in the list is now pointing to, nothing. The second thing is we're effectively changing the contents of an array during iteration through that array, which is pretty much never a good idea. So instead of destroy actor here, we're going to create another local variable. We'll call this expired enemies. And just like enemies, this will be an array of enemy base. And all this is used for is right here, we're just going to add the current enemy. So now when it hits the final point, it just gets added to this array. So then over here, oh, that's odd that I have this space left. We'll throw out a sequence. And for that, we're just going to also iterate through an array. And the purpose of this array, obviously, is to destroy the actor and also remove item from the original enemies array. So with that issue resolved, I go back in, hit play. You can see spawns 2, where there's a count of 2, there's a count of 3, that first one gets destroyed, and then there's a count of 3 again. And when we hit stop, no errors pop up. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video and would like to see more, you know what to do. And if you would like to support this channel, watch these videos 2 weeks early, or just want to download the project files, you can do so through my Patreon linked below.